Yeah, hey, this shit easy, nigga. Hey, all I'm talking about, nigga, I'm still out here trying to get it.
Contender Regime Boxing, checking back in with y'all, man. What's going on? So, Errol Spence posted on social media that he has an announcement coming soon. A lot of people say that the announcement is going to be this week. People have even went as far as to say that the announcement for his next fight coming up has already been decided. The opponent, they're saying that it's Keith Thurman. I don't think there has been anything solidified as far as like PBC coming out and saying that Errol Spence and Keith Thurman are fighting next, or Fox or Showtime saying that Errol Spence is fighting Keith Thurman next. There hasn't been anything of the sort that's been official or solidified as of me making this video. You dig what I'm saying? But there's been multiple people alluding to the idea that that fight is indeed etched in stone. So, there's still Imante Stanionis out there, who is an undefeated fighter, who is the WBA regular champion. He beat Butayev in a very competitive, fun, action-packed fight. That was actually on Errol Spence's undercard when he fought Ugas. Great fight. Imante Stanionis is a very fun fighter to watch in ways. He remind me of Errol Spence as far as like how he don't show no emotion. He just steadfast and just he trying to get you up out of there. But he earned his right. He took step aside money before to allow Errol Spence to pursue the Terrence Crawford fight. You know what I'm saying? So he's there. You got Jerome Booth Ennis, who is number 1 in the IBF. And I believe that he is currently petitioning to make himself the mandatory. But, they already got the WBC just mandated Keith Thurman as the mandatory. Of course, Imante Stanionis is the WBA mandatory. No mandatory right now for the IBF and and then no Terrence Crawford fight, at least right now. So Errol Spence's next opponent, as you can see, he got options, right? And all of these guys are viable options. We talked about that on the last video I posted, realistic options for Errol Spence. But I want to talk about Keith Thurman in this video. And I want to touch on it's the obvious that Errol Spence, he said that I'm never going to fight Keith Thurman. I don't have any interest in fighting Keith Thurman. I chased that man down for years, and he openly and blatantly ducked me, wasted my time, and really just showed me a lack of character, a lack of respect. You feel me? Because when you got two champions, especially when y'all in-house and it's supposed to be a certain level of respect there, Floyd Mayweather, a Hall of Fame fighter, some consider him the GOAT, brought these two guys together and said, man, look, I will relinquish my titles just so y'all can fight. You know what I'm saying? And when Keith Thurman sat there and he act like he with the smoke, and Errol Spence, he young, up and coming. He was in the same position Boots in right now. He like, shit, I want it. What's good? You feel me? Like, let me have that. You know what I'm saying? But Keith Thurman was like, it ain't worth it right now. You ain't got no belt, all that shit. Errol went and got that IBF up off of Kell Brook. And Keith Thurman just proceeded to waste Errol Spence's time and just showed a lack of respect for a fellow champion. Like, bro, you don't even respect me as a champion. The fact it was a sign of respect that he ducked him and evaded him, so blatantly and so openly. You know what I'm saying? To the point where everybody know Keith Thurman did not want to fight Errol Spence. It got to the point where the man said, look, I'm not fighting him right now. I need to get back. You know what I'm saying? I need time to recover. I need, all these different things, take a year, put another quarter on it. You know what I'm saying? So it was blatant. And so there was a level of respect to the point where, like, he low-key, you could have assumed that he feared Errol Spence. You know what I'm saying? But then there's also a lack of respect because you got a fellow champion and you're not trying to, like, compete. You feel me? And you wasting that man's time. So Keith Thurman, he low-key held up the welterweight division. Like, Keith Thurman single-handedly, I don't even want to say single-handedly, but he had a span of 2 or 3 years where he did single-handedly hold up the division. Feel what I'm saying? Imagine if Errol Spence and Keith Thurman fought and unified way back then. Errol probably been done beat Crawford ass, and then he probably been at 154 right now. He probably would already been done beat the goddamn brakes off Terrence Crawford, you know. But they probably wouldn't have made that fight back then anyway. You dig what I'm saying? So, you know, we probably would have still been in this situation right now. Errol with 3 belts with no Terrence Crawford fight. You feel what I'm saying? So who the fuck knows? So, here's why Keith Thurman is the obvious choice. Why he's the choice that makes the most sense. Now, I say obvious, right? So if it's obvious, then y'all motherfuckers already know why it makes sense to fight Keith Thurman. Think about it. You see all that shit that I just talked about? That's called history. That's a fight that you can sell. That fight really sells itself. Motherfuckers can say what they want about Keith Thurman, and most of it that you say, I probably will agree with. You know what I'm saying? He's a ducker. You know what I'm saying? He's inactive. He can't take body shots. He ain't the same no more. He ain't get knockouts like that no more. You know what I'm saying? He's afraid of Errol Spence. All that shit that you can say about Keith Thurman, I might agree with for the most part. You know what I'm saying? But one thing you can't say is that Keith Thurman don't know how to sell no fight. Is that Keith Thurman isn't an exciting fighter. That the Errol Spence and Keith Thurman matchup, Errol gonna do 300,000 by himself. He brought Yordenis Ugas, who was, nobody knew who the fuck Yordenis Ugas was. Like, let's be real. He brought that man out here to Dallas, Texas, at Cowboy Stadium, and put damn near 50,000 people in there. You feel what I'm saying? So if you can do that with Yordenis Ugas, imagine what he can do with Keith Thurman. He can easily put 45 to 50,000 people at Cowboy Stadium. You know what I'm saying? Because that's where the fight gonna be. It's gonna be at the crib, right here. You know what I'm saying? That's where the fight gonna be. So you bring Keith Thurman to Dallas. He ain't got no choice but to concede to all your demands because now he thirsty for the fight. This is his golden ticket to get back to relevance. You know what I'm saying? So you can't say that Keith Thurman don't sell. You can't say Keith Thurman don't put asses in the seats. You can't say that this particular matchup and this dynamic that these guys have, this history that these guys have, the stylistic matchup, the fact that Keith Thurman he's a fun fighter to watch. He lets his hands go. He throw big lefts and rights. Got good hand speed. He ain't afraid to exchange, and he'll get out there with you. You know what I'm saying? Once he actually get in the ring, he'll exchange punches with you. And he goes for the knockout. And Errol Spence, what do I really need to say about Errol Spence? Y'all know what he do. You dig what I'm saying? So imagine that matchup. It's a great matchup. It sells. It's a very, very winnable fight for Errol Spence. I think that fight, if you wanna be optimistic about Terrence Crawford coming to his senses and getting the gall and the nuts to actually get in the ring with Errol Spence and figure all that business shit out, man, and like quit styling this shit and go ahead and make the fight with Errol the True Spence Jr. If you want to be optimistic about that, you can say that this fight somewhat helps Errol Spence prepare for a guy like Terrence Crawford. A guy like Terrence Crawford, who is an incredible counterpuncher, who likes to throw punches in between your punches, who got really good power, who got nice hand speed. Keith Thurman does those same things as well. Good counterpuncher, throws in between your shots, throws big lefts and rights. You know what I'm saying? Got power. You feel me? And got good feet, decent feet. It ain't Floyd Mayweather, but he got decent footwork. You know what I'm saying? So this could be something that could help Errol Spence prepare stylistically. You know what I'm saying? Just to give him a look. You feel me? So if you want to look at it from that perspective, you dig what I'm saying? But all of those reasons that I name are clear reasons why Keith Thurman is the obvious choice. Now, the only thing holding this fight back is the fact that Errol Spence, he feel like Keith Thurman shitted on him. You know what I'm saying? And he don't want to feed Keith Thurman. Errol Spence don't want to feed Keith Thurman. He don't want to put no meals on that man's plate by the lack of respect that he showed Errol Spence on his come up. You know what I'm saying? So Keith Thurman direly needing an opportunity, a chance at relevance again, a chance at 3 fucking titles, a pay-per-view opportunity, the biggest check that he ever made in his life. Well, outside of Manny Pacquiao, you know what I'm saying? Another huge payday. Like, Errol Spence don't want to put that meal on that man's plate just based off their history. But this might be the best. I ain't even going to say might. This is the best business move for Errol Spence. And if Terrence Crawford going to take a business move to go fight on an unproven network, BLK Prime, versus a guy that nobody ever the fuck heard of, he made a business move. So Errol Spence, on the other hand, he's going to fight a former world champion, a top guy in the division who only lost 1 time to Manny Pacquiao, an all-time great, you know, who is a more than credible opponent. A guy who might knock out a Abenesian in 5 rounds. You know what I'm saying? So this is, I mean, it all the shit makes sense for Errol Spence to fight Keith Thurman. It just makes sense. It's a winnable fight. I mean, every fight for Errol Spence at welterweight is winnable. But this is just so favorable for Errol Spence. But at the same time, it's a potentially competitive fight, because you can't just go in there thinking you finna just sleep Keith Thurman and not have nothing firing back at you. So it's a fight that can keep Errol. Errol will get up for this fight because I know he want to put hands on Keith Thurman. So if it came down to this really the worst possible position. It's the best position for Keith Thurman, but it's the absolute worst position for Keith Thurman. It's the best for him for obvious reason. It's a chance at relevance again, a big payday. You know, you get a chance to get yourself back at the top of the game. You feel me? Because at one point Keith Thurman was at the top of the welterweight division. He was considered the best at one point. But it's the worst time and the worst position for him, because now you have an angry Errol Spence. You thought Errol Spence wanted to whoop your ass back then. Now you got an even more angry Errol Spence. He angry that Terrence Crawford wasted his time and wasted the fans' time and ducked out of the fight. You know what I'm saying? Left him on stunt. You know what I'm saying? Left that man hanging in the middle of the negotiations like that. Didn't even tell nobody what was going on, knowing damn well under their nose he working on a whole nother fight. He angry about that shit. He angry about that. Then on top of that, it's Keith Thurman. He been wanting to put hands and feet on Keith Thurman. He been wanting to beat Keith Thurman ass. And then also, Errol Spence want to make an example out of somebody. And he coming off his first stoppage in the last 3 fights. Just stopped Yordenis Ugas, who never been stopped before, one of the biggest welterweights physically in the sport. He's coming off of stopping him, breaking another orbital bone, cracking some more ribs. Now you getting him sharp. He fought this year, so he ain't coming off no big old layoff. He been in the gym, staying in shape, been eating good, been eating right. This the worst time for Keith Thurman to be fighting Errol Spence. This the worst time. He probably would have had a better chance 2 or 3, 4 years ago. This the worst time for him to be fighting Errol Spence. I think Errol Spence gonna fuck around and I'm not wishing this on nobody, but I think Earl will fuck around and seriously damage Keith Thurman. Not even bullshitting with you. Like keeping it all the way 100. That shit, it's gonna be bad, bro. If this fight happens, bro, it's gonna be bad. This is literally the worst time for Keith Thurman to be fucking with Errol Spence. I think Errol Spence's next opponent, whoever it is, gonna get their ass beat. Bad. But especially if it's Keith Thurman. Ooh, just think about the build up to that fight. You see how Earl, like, I don't want nothing to do with Keith Thurman. But imagine once that shit signed, sealed, and delivered, and it's the build up there at the press conferences. Now he's soaking it all in. He remembering them times where every time he ran up on Keith Thurman, his braids start unraveling and pink oil moisturizer just start dripping on the side of his head, and he giving Errol Spence to run around. All that shit start coming back, and he remember why he heard. He remembered what he wanted to do to Keith Thurman. And that's all it's going to take for Earl to get back in that mode of seek and destroy. I want Keith Thurman. This is the worst time for Keith Thurman to be fucking with Errol Spence. But all the stars align. You ain't got no Terrence Crawford fight if it ain't this, or Monte Stanionis, or Jerron Boots Ennis. Man, you might as well move up to 154. Y'all let me know what y'all think down in the comments, man. How do y'all feel about an Errol Spence and Keith Thurman fight? Do you think that's indeed the next fight for Errol Spence? You know what I'm saying? And if you don't, who you think it's going to be? Y'all let me know what y'all think, man. Contender regime boxing. I'll holler at y'all boys, man.